Hi, this is Joe Lindsley, American in Kyiv. This is our Land of the Free podcast with Ukrainska Pravda, Ukrainian Truth. I have been reporting in Ukraine every single day on Chicago's WGN radio, and here on this Land of the Free podcast, we are privileged to speak with some of the smartest, most brilliant Ukrainians and foreigners here working for victory and freedom. And today we have a conversation with a great Ukrainian who I first met in the city of Kharkiv, Pani Deputatka Maria Mezentseva.
Correct, Joe. Hello.
Maria, great to see you.
Great to see you.
This is the land of the free. Stories of life and liberty in a time of war.
Maria is a member of parliament, or in the Ukrainian language, a deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, the Supreme Council, the Parliament of Ukraine, and she's from the city of Kharkiv, one of my favorite places in the world. I call it the center of the free world, just 30 miles from Russia. And Maria, as a member of parliament, you have been not only working on legislation here to help the people of Ukraine in the time of war, but you've been a very key voice traveling the world. You're soon going to the U.S., Probably when this airs, you will be in the United States.
Hopefully.
And so you are a great advocate of Ukraine and Ukrainian freedom. And so we're honored to have this conversation. And first, we'll start by talking about your city of Kharkiv, a city that is dear to me. I spend I'm there at least once a month. And you grew up in Kharkiv, and you've seen that city, sort of the resilience of that city through these past 21, 22 months. How is Kharkiv city right now?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for starting specifically with something which is deep in my heart, because I'm indeed from Kharkiv. I was born there. I finished Ukrainian English grammar school there, graduated from the uni. My first jobs were there, first experience with politics, especially the local ones. Currently, we call Kharkiv as unbreakable, as basically every other village, city, town, or region of Ukraine, as it did not surrender to Russians, who actually invaded the city, almost approached its, central parts, and were stopped by brave territorial defense and regular battalion of Ukrainian army. I will never forget those days, because at the same time, you could not be present there immediately as the parliamentarians were voting on the day of invasion on martial law. Exactly. Yeah. And it was 10 past 7 a.m. And I was one of those who arrived to the parliament, one of the first waves of arrivals. I went immediately on TV to make sure that the people know we haven't left the country. We're here. We're with you. We will now vote the martial law, etc. But my heart was torn apart, because back in Kharkiv, the battles were so terrifying. And we kept on reading the news. We did not know what's going to happen next. But I was so sure that as Kharkiv did not surrender to Russian propaganda in 2014, when the aggression actually has started against Ukraine by Russia, when sort of this green man in unknown uniform were not only present in Crimea, but also in Kharkiv, trying to promote the understanding that they are there to support and, let's say, defend the rights to speak Russian in a mostly Russian-speaking city. What is interesting today that many people are switching consciously, not only youth, but the generation, for instance, of my parents and older, because we are not just fighting today for buildings, cities, roads, and regions. We're fighting. This is existential war for our culture, for our language, and for the core existence of our nation.
Well, I've felt that deeply. I went to Kharkiv January 2022. And I wanted to see this city. I don't know why. I was compelled to go visit it.
Best time.
Yeah, so I got to see it before the full-scale invasion.
Yeah.
And I never saw a city in my life that had more of the spirit of the American dream. Everyone I met there said, in my city, if you have a goal, if you work hard, you can achieve it.
Perfect.
And that was the spirit of that city. And then to have all that bombarded, and the Kharkiv, those first weeks, as you say, it was incredibly intense. But Kharkiv, because I had heard the history of what happened in 2014, Kharkiv was why I knew Ukraine was not going to fall, because the Russians they took it for a few hours maybe in 2014, and the people defended that city. And since in the past year and a half that I've been going to Kharkiv, I've seen more and more people speaking Ukrainian language. That's why I feel at home there. It's this great center of rejuvenation of the Ukrainian spirit.
Exactly, and that historically there are several interesting facts. To be very proud, some people in Kharkiv call it the first capital, but it actually was never a first capital. We have the only capital, which is Kiev, since centuries. Mm-hmm. And Kiev is also called the mother of the, it's literally Horodів Ruskich, but Rus is actually, the word Rus is actually a Ukrainian word for the kingdom of Kiev.
The Rus were the Viking people that sailed down from what's now Sweden.
It was just yet again a part of the history which has been still trying to be stolen from us. But Kharkiv was a capital in terms of Moscow ruling, so Kremlin ruling. It was more convenient to do it from the eastern part of Ukraine, rather than Kiev, for instance. So this is the first legend I'm trying to defeat when I'm traveling and talking to foreigners, or when foreigners are visiting. And the second part that as well, Ukrainian language was widely spoken in the region as well as in Donbass. If you go to any village in Donbass, next to Donetsk, Lugansk, etc., you would be hearing babushkas, grandmas, babusi speaking Ukrainian purely. And that's again, it beats the legend that there were some Russian-speaking population that needed a sort of protection. But that leads us to a famous saying of now finally internationally recognized dictator, because it's in the new resolution of the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly. Putin is a dictator. He tells everyone all the time that Russia stops where the Russian language stops. So basically nowhere. It's everywhere. So we are currently trying to, reproduce our history and our identity. I think it's boosting tremendously in different, clothes designs, in the songs. Why we are so sad when we see snow falling, for instance, like today in Kiev? Because for us, it's a never-ending 24th of February when it was snowing, it was still cold, and there was a complete unknown in front of us. But indeed, regardless what the military experts across the globe were saying, we did not fall within 72 hours. And I think, yet again, the best what we can take from this aggression is that the nation was glued immediately. It was like a super glue. If you remember back in the childhood, when you break something, it can glue it. So the super glue was the aggression, which led to tremendous changes in the society and in the world. It did change the landscape of security. So from, a city of 2 million people population, Kharkiv, to a global scale of the changes, that's impressive. Moreover, point number 3 and 4, which not many people know, we have the largest square, which is Freedom Square, and the largest theater, opera and ballet theater in Europe after the Munich Opera. So it was also targeted by Russian rockets, but we maintained the building. It's in my constituency. It's very symbolic. And the theater was traveling across the world to show that the culture never dies. You cannot destroy it with rockets. And it was very emotional. So this is to say we have many things to be proud of. We can surely, have sort of a Dubai in the neighborhood of Saltivka, which was the most densely populated neighborhood in Europe. So 500,000 people live there. They still do. And our task is to bring them, the light of hope, the fact that the government can reimburse them for these losses, but not only the Ukrainian government. There are 45 states who signed a special document for reparations, and not only for the buildings, but also for different war crimes, like sexual war crimes, losses of the beloved ones, etc. And I also think it's unprecedented. Something that happens today in Ukraine also marks the changes in international law. And I'm sure, Joe, when you witnessed numerous war crimes, you would agree, and one would agree, that justice has to come first as well. We know it takes long, but we have to get it done.
Are you saying that international war crime legislation has changed?
Absolutely.
In what
Let's
ways?
say we gave a new bright side to it, because in a different way aggressions were taken across the globe. Since Second World War, there was not even one tribunal who would drag to justice an aggressor, a political leader and his political and military friends, or group who were planning, conducting and ordering these war crimes. So if aggression would never occur, we would be never facing these numerous war crimes. And today, President Zelensky puts it very clearly in the peace plan, which was supported by 143 states in January current year in the UN General Assembly. And one of the points is the responsibility for the top crime, which is crime of aggression. We think Putin and Lavrov and Shoigu, they have to be in the court. For that, we have some trick in the international law. Unfortunately, International Criminal Court cannot prosecute them because they did not ratify Rome Statute. Mm-hmm. One might say, some international lawyers who listen to our podcast might say, yeah, Maria, but Ukraine didn't do it either. Yes, but we have an intention to do so. However, Russia would never do something to prosecute itself. Even though a recent interesting case, Armenia has ratified the Rome Statute, a country which usually, would be seen as friendly to Russia. And Putin cannot travel to Armenia any longer because he, according to recent International Criminal Court warrant on deported children, which is a crime of genocide, actually, is on the list of all those countries. It's more than 150. So basically more than one third of the globe over there, he's unwanted. And it poses yet again, a sign to him that, look, dude, you cannot do what you're doing. And it sends another signal to other possible aggressors across the globe that, look, guys, if you are planning to annex territories of another state, which is a pure understanding of aggression, if you are planning to launch military operations elsewhere rather than in your internationally recognized borders, you will be prosecuted. So that's impressive, because these crimes and the understanding of them, of the crime of aggression, was actually developed in Lviv by Jewish German lawyers, and that's
right after World War II, right?
Exactly. Just a little 3 years before Nuremberg was set up.
There's a great
still
book
during the war
called East West Street.
Correct.
I can't remember the name of the author, but we'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
And it's a story of two Lviv lawyers.
Yeah, Lemkin, one of them.
Yeah.
And
Lautenberg. And they both.
Joe, it's like I have shivers right now, because the idea of the tribunal. I've read about Lemkin back in my university years, but I didn't know the concept was developed in the basement of an apartment which I rent in Kiev, and then linking it to other lawyers in US, in UK, and across the globe. And now we collected 40 governments in Berlin recently talking about already the format. I mean, isn't it amazing?
Maria, and I remember during the pandemic in a cafe in Kyiv, I read that book. Just as interesting history, I never would have imagined that we'd actually have to deal with this in a very practical way.
Exactly.
Such that we're talking about it here right now.
Yeah.
And you see that, and you see the importance of not letting go of these war crimes and not forgetting them. And, it was maybe last week, the BBC had a story that really annoyed me, but it was about 20,000 Ukrainians who've defected. They've crossed through the woods or over the river to get away from conscription. And they spent so many resources to investigate these guys that are just getting away. And meanwhile, we have these heinous war crimes that have happened. And it's hard to investigate things in Russia because there's no free press. But this stuff has to be investigated. And when I was maybe in September in your region, in Kharkiv region, I went to some villages that still came under shelling and into houses that had been occupied by the Russians. And it's so much of what I saw when we saw on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel. They were painting death
hostages,
to Ukrainians and the horrible things that happened in those houses.
It reminded us a flashback. We were on the streets of Bucha back then, or the streets of Irpin, or the streets of Kupiansk, which is in Kharkiv region. And I don't think we should let it go, because this is also a story of my family. We have a missing person, and he's missing for more than since the beginning of the full scale. He's a teacher in a Ukrainian school. It happened at the temporary occupied territories, and I think I've opened up about it just this summer because I received so many requests from different Ukrainian families asking what can we do, how can we search for them, how can we involve International Committee of the Red Cross, which receives a lot of funds from US, UK, European states, Australia, everywhere for the humanitarian purposes like this, or to search for war prisoners of war who are also Ukrainian soldiers, to conduct exchanges. But civilian cases are terribly odd in a way, we literally don't know where, for instance, our relative is. We hope he's alive, he's verified as alive, but these stories are rolling since 2014, and this insane pain which is brought by the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children, and we are extremely thankful to the people of America who are now hosting Ukrainian families, Ukrainian children who lost their parents or are disconnected with their orphan families, or they are in need of extra help for the various health issues and physical difficulties, or at least a stress which they've been through during the war. So I think we cannot be more thankful than we should be more thankful than we are for specifically for these cases. And I think US has an authority in terms of political will to strengthen the fact that we have to use the realistic mechanism, and this is, for instance, International Red Cross. And we remember how they could not travel to Olenivka. It was under temporary occupation territory. Ukraine was always given security guarantee. Russia never did. And then we remember what happened. Russia just shelled our military personnel there, the soldiers who were taken hostage, who became war prisoners according to the Geneva Convention. And then they just shelled them. They killed them alive. They were sleeping.
Yeah.
And they tried to accuse Ukraine. Well, all international society knew it was not real. So I think bringing the stories, for instance, what we will do in our tour in America, and not only in San Francisco or New York or DC, our aim is to, first of all, bring these real stories of the families, of children, of culture, of our current needs, and to explain yet again why American taxpayers are investing in this and why it makes such a huge difference to us. Because I think the propaganda which exists in every country is trying, especially the powerful Russian propaganda, we can assess it in different ways, but they do really good sometimes. They're trying to pose the cases of divisions, Republican Democrats, and then this and that way, East and West. Ukraine is forgotten. Ukraine is not being in the top stories. I think this is us, people, politicians, those who are, doing expert of diplomacy, as I call it. We have to bring these stories out loud because, for instance, we have relatives living in the U.S. and I know how it is done in Michigan State, how they do the cultural events, how they're doing Thanksgiving with Ukrainian community to support each other at least, because being away from home is difficult. And, many people who never thought they would appear in the U.S., but it was their dream, they're finally there, and they're contributing as Ukrainians to the economy of U.S. They are recruited, they have several foreign languages, several masters, they're skillful. So this is not bad to have Ukrainians in your community. And I think these cases are not yet well delivered. So we're going to try to fix that.
The story is not told. And that's part of the reason why you're going to the U.S.
Exactly.
And as I think about this question of propaganda, and so many Americans I know who believe in freedom, if they really knew the truth, if they saw Ukraine, if they came here to visit, like every American I know who comes here to visit, like our friend who's an editor at the New York Post, and we brought her to Kharkiv. I think you brought her to Kharkiv, and she stayed. She quit her Paris vacation.
She came for 2 days. She stayed for 2 weeks.
Yeah. and she skipped Paris to stay in Kharkiv.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she was so captivated by the Ukrainian people. And she told me when she left, she had never had better conversations in her life. She was so inspired by what she saw here. And I know that would be true of so many of the Americans I know, including people who are pretty influential in politics. If they saw the real spirit, they would want to do everything they could to help. But they don't see that. It gets lost in the propaganda. And I think especially you as a member of the Ukrainian parliament, one of the big talking points that Russian propaganda pushes, and a lot of Americans believe, is that, they say Zelensky banned religion. There's no freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all these things that that we know here are not true because this is an incredibly free country. But how would you describe, first, looking at your role as a member of parliament during this time? There's discussions about whether or not there will be elections.
Yeah.
How is it for you, in a member of a democratic government, in a time when democracy is under martial law? What is that like for you in the parliament?
I think Ukrainian parliament, within 32 years almost 32 years of independence, has never felt as united as it is today, has never voted so many laws with constitutional majority. For us, it's 300 plus votes, and it's really a matter of fact. We can look through statistics, and it comes to laws not only linked to surely strengthening armed forces, increasing their salaries, giving them everything we can. Our next year budget is 21.5% allocations to the military, security and defense. It's the NATO countries are allocating 2%. So that's just to compare how dedicated we are. And the parliament is functioning well. We get together every second week. Every week we have online committees, and COVID contributed to that because you can be in the US, but you can vote for the laws. For instance, in the committee I represent, Euro-Atlantic Committee, so it's for EU and NATO integration. And I'm very proud that, I've dedicated 14 years of my life to European integration when I had a position of stagiaire, a trainee in European Parliament in 2012, just before the Revolution of Dignity. I actually landed in Kiev on the day of the Revolution of Dignity. And I mean, thinking right now that it's been 10 years already since we were at Maidan, in Kharkiv, in Kiev, Orange Revolution as well, that it's unbelievable. Time flies so fast. But today during the full-scale aggression, we're a candidate state to the EU with almost at the edge of opening negotiations for the full membership. We are talking about, I think, very expected Washington summit of NATO. I think it is political decision to which is still put on hold, put on pause on our membership, because we would only strengthen NATO, not reversal, and we should not be. You see, I'm saying us, but the partners should not be afraid of it, because Article 5 of a collective defense is already activated, because you guys are giving us more than 600 different types of NATO weapons, and they're being tested in Ukraine and used so efficiently that one can only, dreamt about. And then I think parliamentary level is so crucial, because I will never forget this trip. It was 8 members of Ukrainian parliament. One was already abroad. She gave up her mandate for that later. We traveled ladies only. Some were traveling with small children, pets even, because we didn't know whether we're going to come back, what will happen with us on the trip, because we're on the kill list of Putin. And he knew we're going there to get rid of Russia in the Council of Europe, first international organization.
When was this?
It was beginning of March.
Mm-hmm.
It was beginning of March, yeah. And I said, ladies, we are packing our suitcases, because it's going to take us 3 days to arrive to Strasbourg and Brussels and London. We did a small tour. We met different leaders, Macron, Boris Johnson, then others. It was fascinating how we were received. It was fascinating that we debated for 11 hours whether Russia should be or not It was not a debate whether it should leave Council of Europe. But every person who told me in January, just 3 weeks before the invasion, because we had a session there, oh, Maria, look, you're over-exaggerating. It's 150,000 troops. I mean, maybe they're observing. Maybe something is going on. I mean, I truly didn't believe myself in the full-scale invasion. I thought something will be going on in Crimea and Donbass, as it used to be before. But you know how people absolutely switched to a full support of Ukraine? It was very evident. And I think we don't have to maintain it. We have to increase it, but using different means and different instruments. And Joe, you're very right. It's so far to travel. I mean, I'm still, trying to sleep over the jet lag after Canadian trip, but it's worth it. Like 3 movies and you are on the European continent. 3 movies and you're going to witness historical developments because maybe phrases would sound different to many people, but indeed we're fighting for the freedom which every American believes in. I, as baptized Christian Orthodox, reading sometimes Quran and praying in Catholic Church, I don't think one can accuse any president or parliamentarians. We indeed want to shut down the Moscow church in Ukraine because it's not the church. They're praying for those who are killing us. Yeah. They are praising Patriarch Kirill, who is officially KGB agent. We can Google it. I mean, it's the same face. And I think Americans who would hear our podcast would be very much interested in this story. So the freedom is there. We've been fighting for it constantly. It's not only about this 10 years. It's about our several centuries, or even, I don't know, since the 9th century when the diplomacy was flourishing with other European countries, and the daughters of Yaroslav the Wise, our king, gave birth to another 150 kings and queens across Europe. So, we have nothing to prove. I think we've proven with the blood which remains in the soil of Ukraine, how dedicated we are. But you cannot fight a country with nuclear power, which is occupying our nuclear power station in Ukraine, with sticks. We must have air defense. Yes, indeed, we can rely on our production, but I mean, we're not producing NASAMS or Patriots. It's the U.S. who does.
And that's why, Kyiv.
And I just give one figure to everyone who would listen to us. It's for instance, the shutdowns in Kiev and other regions already started. Like Facebook reminded me of a picture when I'm eating borscht next to candles because there was nothing to do. It was winter. No light, no nothing. Yeah, internet was almost down because satellites cannot run fast, and it was only able to send some messages of WhatsApps that I'm alive, and it was already happening. So now, more or less, you can see that we are okay. There were no massive shellings because we protected our infrastructure. But one shot from Patriot rocket is $4.1 million, and if the infrastructure of some power plant station is affected, it's $14.9 million. So, I mean, what is cheaper? I think it's cheaper to provide air defense. And, it's not like we're demanding. I think this is the unfortunate reality. And no one is saying that war might not overlap over the ocean one day from one or another side. Russia is quite a big country. And they're testing us. They're testing not only democracy, but they're testing American will every day. Okay, we're going to make another step on the soil of Ukraine by doing these war crimes and shelling hospitals and schools. What's going to be the response? Are you going to put extra sanctions? Are you going to put some oligarchs? And by the way, applause to the Manhattan court, which sent back the funds of some not very known oligarch, but still it's for the reconstruction of Ukraine. So there are many topics which I think we are under speaking, and those movies we've been watching when we were children in Ukraine. It was the favorite nights of Friday when our national TV was showing American movies with the translation into English, but you could still hear American accent and the English, so you can practice a little bit. And I can tell you that I would never thought that it's going to be us here in Ukraine who are defending something that U.S. was built on, that the founding fathers were talking about, those who many Americans see on dollars, and not only.
Well, I mean, I feel that, this week that we're recording here, it's 10 years ago this week, the Maidan Revolution, the Revolution of Dignity began. And everything I've studied about political theory, I think that's one of the most extraordinary revolutions in human history. And it was Ukrainian people who were peaceful, and the secret police came and they fired their bullets, and the people refused to leave the streets until the pro-Putin regime fled. And you think about what the world would be like if there was not the Maidan Revolution. Russia would control all of Ukraine. They'd control.
Absolutely. It could have happened. They were planning to use the puppet government. Moreover, they were planning to use the same people who left the country in 2014 now in February 2022, because we saw different famous names on the different information channels that they're planning to become governors, city mayors. Like, we knew who might be the city mayor of Kharkiv. We're like, dude, first of all, you come to Ukraine, pass the courts, pay what you have to pay to Ukrainian banks after you raped them, and then we talk. And well, first you go to jail and then we talk. So this is something extraordinary which Ukrainian students started. I mean, I was a student myself. I just finished back then my second master's on European integration. And for me...
You in the Maidan in Kharkiv or in Kiev?
Yeah. I was both in Kiev and then Kharkiv. We were traveling by trains. By the way, we pray for everyone who's involved in Ukrainian rails, because there was not even one train which was late or did not come on the route. Whereas, sometimes in Berlin and France, I'm late for some sessions of the meetings because the trains are late. So just to say that the resilience which came with the spirit back then 10 years ago, people already started, I think, to forget that the highest number of European flags that the EU has ever seen was there in Maidan, with Maidans in from Lutsk to Kharkiv, from Chernigiv to Yalta, even, because it was not yet occupied. And the commitment was very clear. We are turning our backs to the former USSR, Soviet Union past, where, for instance, I was born at the collapse in the year of the collapse of the USSR, and thank God it was this. This legacy did not influence me because I was too little. And when we're talking about such things as Budapest Memorandum, could we secure ourselves with the documents being signed? Could we skip giving up on our jets and the bombs, which are actually now being targeting us? They're from Ukraine, and could we not give up on nukes that that was taken also by Russia back then? We were too little to act. I was 1 year old and probably just dreaming back then about something linked to politics by watching the news. But today we have this power. The people gave us this power. We are coming from Maidan to the parliament. We are, let's say, I'm not saying the previous convocation was mostly elected from Maidan, because it was the politicians who basically have their grassroots in Maidan. But us as well, we are social activists. We were working for international NGOs. I currently represent the IRI, International Republican Institute, in the eastern regions of Ukraine,
which works on clean elections.
Absolutely, but also NDI contributed so much. The National Democratic Institute, when I was still a state councillor. And actually, the trainers of NDI persuaded me to run for parliamentary elections, because I was like, okay, but I am with another party now. Okay, I support, President Zelensky, but is it okay to run, with his party? So it was American support, for instance, in my personal case, was always with me. And I mean, I've participated in work and travel and things like that. It was really fascinating how today we are learning from each other. And I think Americans are also learning something practically, what the movies are teaching us with the level of how patriotic we can be. So we can be in Ukraine patriotic to the extent, as our anthem says, we are willing to give our body and our soul for freedom and for our existence. So I think it's, when you are in a cozy apartment or office, it's very valuable when you donate for something, even when you feed bats, for instance, but you do it over the ocean, or you help some grandmas with medicine, or indeed you sign up to a petition on extra military support to Ukraine. And it's a matter of fact. It's a matter of survival for us. You are number one, friends. In US, you are number one, according to the amount of tax payments and this huge 61.7 billion package that we are expecting. And I hope both Republicans and Democrats, as I've heard it in Canada from them, they will support, and we don't want to be the topic which divides. We want to be the topic that unites.
Well, as you mentioned, those American movies you watched in the 1990s, Americans love good versus evil superhero movies. And this is that every single day in real life, So you don't just have to live it virtually. You can buy drones. You can vote in a certain way. You can help. And I think about that support from the U.S. So much of it is military equipment. It's not just money. They're not pouring money into Kyiv. It's technology and equipment, which, as you mentioned, Ukrainians are testing and refining and showing what works and what can be improved. It's an amazing testing ground. And to close right now, so here we are. It's wintertime. It's snowy outside, and we have electricity. We have power here.
Thanks
in
God.
and this is, even if there wasn't, we'd still be surviving as everyone did last winter. But this is pretty extraordinary. I think about what happened on September 22nd when Ukraine sent those Storm Shadow missiles from the United Kingdom to the Crimean Peninsula, to the occupied Crimean Peninsula, with such precision. And since then, the Black Sea Fleet of Russia has been on the run.
Yeah.
And cities like Kyiv are protected because of the Patriot missile battery. But at the same time, you have Kharkiv and Odessa, places without that air defense, are bombarded. Places near the front line are hit very often. And Ukrainians have shown, it's for sure, what can be done with these long-range precision missiles.
Yeah.
But you need more of them. Is that...
that's very true. And Joe, you are very precise with the names of the items and kits. I would also say that, for instance, platform United24, which can be easily Googled, is providing an opportunity for those who would want to invest or contribute to drones, because everyone who played PlayStation back in the days are now flying FPV drones. And FPV drones is like a spider, like your hand, let's say. It's just for people to understand the how big of a size it is. It costs around $350, and it can destroy a tank of $10 million. So they are effective. And then we have many funny videos how guys are becoming dizzy when they hit the tank. It's immediately a dizzy situation because you're happy, but also flying the FPV drones is not very easy. Like, you have to have the skills. But as I refer it to the PlayStation game, it's funny. We also understand that technologies are overlapping in this war. So when Russians couldn't understand how are we using the drones, how did we manage to throw bottles with water when Kherson region was still under occupation to save the people's life, or how the 92 Brigade, the drone section called Achilles, saved the life of a Russian soldier by taking him by drone to the spot where he became a safety spot, where he became a war prisoner. Yeah, he torn apart his T-shirt with having something white, to indicate that he would want to surrender. And the drone of this Achilles, drone group in the 92 Brigade, they took them to the place where he became a war prisoner. I don't know the fate of him now, but Ukraine commits to Geneva Conventions, and I truly believe that he spoke to his relatives, and at least he was alive, unlike those who were next to him during the battle. So they were willing to fight further and died. So that's such a huge, probably for some unrealistic understanding of humanity on the battlefield, of international law at the battlefield. And I think our warriors also invent many things, like they, enhance a little bit this FPV drones, or they play with this. Okay, the Mavic is a Chinese drone, but we still managed to enrich it with some kits.
You enrich it and you take away the Chinese technology.
Yeah.
So they can't spy on you.
So also the development of demining of the robots which are demining our territory, because you know that Russians took advantage of this time and they mined fields from 2 to 22 kilometers. That's why the counteroffensive, which everyone was talking about, was it was successful, I think, but it was not as speedy as we would want it to be. So operation in Kharkiv region, let's say Kharkiv 2.0, didn't happen in Zaporizhia area or the Donbas area. But I'm sure it will, because we are receiving with every package, like just yesterday, US announced another package of military support. I think it will be rolling. Yesterday, the Minister of Defense of Germany arrived, I remember us with girls wearing leopard dresses to bring the attention to the topic, because
in honor of the Leopard tanks.
Yeah,
from
it was
Germany.
nonsense, like, guys, you have it in the stock, like they are under the dust, standing there waiting for jungles to be open for them, but you don't let it happen. So everything took time. The cluster bombs. Amazing decision on the US side, but it was a political decision. It was the military decision, the security decision was made way before the political one. So, sometimes this penetration of politics into the military and vice versa are making things faster, but usually it's slower down stuff.
Well, so on that score, and my last question would be, especially as you're about to go to the US, and you think of the story of the cluster bombs. In the week leading up to the NATO summit in Vilnius, that was the main headline. Oh, controversial cluster bombs coming to Ukraine. None of those stories reported that the American cluster bombs are very different from the Russian cluster bombs. Much more effective, much less collateral damage. And so we got to be very precise about these things. And that gets lost a lot in the American political discourse. And I think another thing, I know for sure, there still is some kind of fear of Russia. A fear that Russia's so-called red lines. And what would you say, as someone who, grew up 30 miles from the Russian border, in a city that with everyone speaks Russian, so you're connected to Russia in many ways. You have family that was living in the Soviet Union. What would you say? And then you were part of the revolution of dignity when students stood up to the pro-Russian regime in Ukraine. What would you say to Americans who are afraid of a world without a powerful Russia?
I think, even when we talk about everyone's small, cozy world, we're also afraid of changes. And we think that, the neighboring power may be more dangerous, but it's just the emotions of fear. When you start eating the elephant by parts, it becomes less stressful. And if you look at just at the map, how big Russia is, which resources of oil and gas. Like, today, Joe, I was watching randomly the online figures, how much Russia is making per second on oil and gas, because it's still not under embargo everywhere in the world. There are countries who are still, buying Russian oil and gas. And this is the main source for the rockets, drones, and everything, the Iranian drones that they buy, etc. So this production of Russian oil and gas is flying over to Ukraine against us. So even though we are way smaller in territory, we have much less of the population, 4 times less than in Russia. I like the phrase that you can't choose the neighbors. However, you can choose friends. And I think we've chosen friends and partners back in the past. And I think Russia is not testing Ukraine. Russia is testing today our unity and our friendship. If we're going to pass this test, we will see many indigenous people of Russia, like Chechens, Ichkeria, like the Republic of Ichkeria, like those people who, for a regular American person, don't even look like Russian because they're from the far eastern part of Russia. They're closer to Baikal and things like that. But they're indigenous people of Russia who took away their right to speak their native language, to preserve their culture, etc. They just colonized, they are being colonized by Russia, by the imperial regime. So I think we're doing here two missions. Preserving peace in the world, which is promoted by, I wouldn't say Western world, but the world which sees its future in peace, not in wars. And at the same time, it might free out the people, the indigenous people of Russia, because we don't talk often about that. Russia is not just Moscow and St. Petersburg. There are so many million of people who are there. I'm not saying that Russians are not supporting what Putin is doing. According to the question time they did last time, it's still around 70%. It's decreasing a little bit, but still, we will see what the elections will bring. But I think we should be talking to these indigenous people and to see how they can help us. Not maybe even to dismantle Russia, because we have to do something with this evil. They cannot just be, taking hostage the whole world of democracy for the fact that they think that they have a right to. No one gave them that right. So I think we also need to present our cases of history. And American history is very rich and interesting. And I loved the times when I was in Springfield, Illinois, like going around the museum of Lincoln and his family. I didn't know how tragic his life was, but he still struggled and fought. And I think the legacy of him lives today. I want so that the legacy of Ukraine, of the free Ukraine, would live in centuries for both Americans, Ukrainians, and we also have mixed blood. And there are so many Americans who found their true love in Ukraine and vice versa, and business opportunities and many other things. For that purpose, we really need to bring insurances to business, like the MIGA International Agency already doing, even though we've been told it's impossible. It's impossible to insure business from the war crimes, possible war crimes and war attacks. We did it. The Ministry of Economy did it. And I think the many Americans saw also a true leader who always U.S. has as someone to be following. And for us, it's our leader, it's President Zelensky, who stayed. And I think it was the most valuable action of that day. Otherwise, Ukraine might have fallen.
Pani deputatka Maria, дуже дякую. Thank you. And
Дякую, Joe.
as you say that, I feel inspired, and I think of 10 years ago this week, in that cold winter, a few students gathered. It seemed impossible that they could stand up to this regime, that regime. And a few months later, by February, it had succeeded. And so the Ukraine shows the world what is possible. And I wish I could go back to America soon, but I will stay here every day until victory. And I hope you're able to share that. I know you will be able to share your spirit with the American people. And we'll have information about Maria in the description. This has been our Land of the Free podcast with Ukrainska Pravda and our team from Ukrainian Freedom News. I'm Joe Lindsley, American in Kyiv, and this is the great Maria Mezentseva.
Thank you, Joe. Дякую. Слава Україні.
Героям слава.